Hello there, everybody, and a very happy Thursday to you today. I hope everyone is doing great. I hope your day is off to a good start or maybe coming to a good end if you're in the evening time like I am here in Hamburg, Germany. My name is Sara Newman, and I am delighted that you're joining us today. If this is your first time for an Altenew Live, then welcome. We're really glad you're here. And I expect that you will be welcomed by some of our regular viewers. We have some folks who drop in every week, and we are delighted that you guys are here as well. Um, let's see what else. We've also got the wonderful Orem who's joining us this evening as well. And Orem is going to be popping in links as we go through tonight's live. So then that way she's going to make it really easy for you. If you see anything that I'm using that you want to find out more about, then you can just click through on those links that Orem will be providing. Now, if you are regular to the Altenew Lives, then you know that if you share tonight's live while we are live, post down below in the comments, let us know that you shared our live and let us know that you and how you shared the live. So post those two things down below and you could be in for a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. And I see some of our regulars are already jumping in. Hi, Cece. It's nice to see you this evening. I'll be waiting for Sue and Deborah and some of our others to join us as well. Hopefully they will be with us too. So normally what we do for a session like this, or what I like to do, is I'll show you the stamps that I'm working with tonight and a couple of other things, a couple of other supplies that I've got on hand. And then I'll tilt down my camera and we'll get right into the demonstration. So let's see. First of all, I'm going to show you some of the supplies that I'm working with today. I've got a couple of stamp sets that I'm really excited about. The first one here is the Sweet Nothings. And as you can see, this one is a really great basic. You've got two large floral images, and they're substantial. You can see in proportion to my hand, they're a good like maybe 3.5 inches, at the widest area. Two great big flowers. You've also got two leaves that are meant to go with the flowers, but I'm going to show you an example of how these have been used for an autumn card. And then you also have lots of really nice sentiments. One that says, "Text me anytime. Thank you for being you. You are oh so sweet." And then hoping we can get together sometime soon, which is a card that I'm going to be sending to a lot of people, because if you're like me, there are probably quite a few people that you haven't seen for a while and would like to keep in contact. So that's a great sentiment for that. And let's see, what else do we have in here? I do want to show you also inside the folder that comes with the set, you've also got some project ideas. And this is always a really nice inspiration guide, because not only does it give you a few instant ideas, but they also share with you the supplies that they've used. So it always gives you the idea plus some additional information. This card is the one that I wanted to point out because I realized, oh yeah, you could use those leaves as autumn leaves if you wanted to. So they're not just limited to the leaves of the flowers. So that's pretty cool. So that is the Sweet Nothings stamp set. There's also a coordinating die set as well. And this is just going to make life easier for creating more dimensional effects so that you can cut these out and then pop them up on some foam tape as well. And I'm really getting to the point that when I get a stamp set, if there's a die set available, I just find it makes my life a lot easier and gives me so many more design options too. Okay, so the next set that I am working with tonight is the Dot Botanicals. Now this is a layering stamp set, and it's only 2 layers, so I'm going to flip it around. You can see on the back, Altenew always does the layering guide on the back. So what you'll do is you'll stamp the silhouette design, and then you'll stamp the dots which are a more subtle effect, directly on top. And then you will get an effect, oops, an effect that looks like this. I think it's a bit tricky to see on the screen, but maybe when I open this up, you can see a little bit better how this can look, or you can use the elements layered, but not layered directly on top of one another. And I just think this is a really cool effect. I love the botanicals, and I love the idea of using some like non-traditional leaf colors. So pretty cool. Oh, I'm seeing some new folks, also some folks that we've had before. I see a lot of Stacy's in there, which is fantastic. And then also some new folks too. So as I've been chattering, again, I'll just say another welcome and hello, and just glad that you're here, whether you're new or have been joining us for every week that we've been doing these. And there are lots of lives from Altenew and lots of classes too. So we've always got something going on. Okay, now the last piece that I want to show you is this die. So this is the Mega Thanks die. I'm going to be using this on one of my cards in a different way, a way that I have not used before. So the Thanks die is a really nice big die. This is probably, I'm going to say about 5 inches. So it's going to be a great focal on the front of your card. If you do scrapbook pages, it can also make a really nice element on your card as well. Okay, so I've run through all of the supplies that we are going to be playing with today, or most of them. For the rest, it's going to be a lot of ink, dye inks, some embossing, and even some pen work. So we're going to get started with some very, very simple pen work. And we're going to move into a little bit of embossing. We're going to try some embossing with this and some blending. That's with the Sweet Nothings. Then I have a lot of examples with the Dot Botanicals. We're going to take a look at some simple layering, and then I also want to show you something that you can do with that giant thanks. Okay, so I've got a lot to share with you today, so I'm going to jump right into it and grab my Misty, got my stamp positioner. I'm going to tilt down the camera here. So bear with me as we go. Here we go. And we're going to start out with this first card. So now this is using a really simple stamping and coloring technique using our Altenew artist markers. Now, normally what you might think to do is to color in the entire flower, but we're just going to do some simple outlining. So what I'll do is grab a piece of smooth white cardstock, I'll pop this down into my stamp positioner, and we're going to do some really simple masking. Know about, but it may be something new to some folks, so I want to demonstrate that too. So I'm going to use this large flower here and pop this down. Pull it off my stamp set first. And let's see, I'm just going to put this right down here, kind of toward the corner. And then get my magnets all lined up on here. And for my ink, I'm just going to use a classic black ink. This is the Obsidian Pigment ink. And this is kind of my go-to for black. Now, if you don't have this one on hand, you can use also the permanent black from Altenew. I do suggest that you use a permanent ink rather than a dye ink, because when you add in your artist markers, you don't want to be smearing everything. Okay, so I've got my black on here, and look at how beautifully that stamps. It's just so pretty, crisp and detailed. Okay, so I'll clean this off. Now I want my leaves to go, you know, kind of on either side here, but I want them to look like they are behind the stamp. So to do that, I just need to do a little bit of masking. Now masking is creating a layer that I can put on top of this flower so that I can position my leaves on here in a way that will make them look like they're actually behind the flower itself. Now you can stamp this onto a piece of scrap paper and cut it out with your scissors. You can also use the dies to cut out a piece to act as a mask. So that's what I'm going to do here. You can see I've already put it to use. And then I'll grab my leaf stamps and I'll put one so that it's going to be coming out from this side. And the other one, I've even got a little indicator on here. The other one, I'll just use this as my cheat positioning and put that here. Okay. And again, just close up my Misty and ink this with black again. Oops, that's not black, that's embossing ink. That's for later. We'll be fine. Okay, and then close this up again. Now my leaves have gone off the edge of my cardstock, which is fine. That's going to give me a really cool look as well. So then when I lift this off, you can see that I've got my leaves just positioned right behind my flower on there. Now I've got this laminated, so I just need to clean this off and also clean off my leaves before putting them back onto my liner. Okay, so pop these back on here. And then I can set that aside. Now, for coloring, there are so many different ways that you can color this flower and these leaves. So you could paint them in with watercolors. You could add in pastels or colored pencils or markers, lots and lots of different things. I'm going to be using my Altenew artist markers for this, and I've got two colors, two of my favorites. I've got the Dusk, and you can tell there's a label on here, and then the other one is the Forest Glades. So these two together, perfect leaf and flower combination. Now with the pens, if you haven't already worked with these, I'll just point out that there's a fat tip on one end. The other end has a fine tip. So you can see the difference on there. For this, it's not really going to matter on the larger portions which tip you choose. For the open areas, I'm going to use the wider nib though. And for this, I'm just going to trace loosely around the lines of the flower. I'm not worried about it being perfect. It's just to give a really simple emphasis on there. So you can see already how that's popping out. Okay, so let's come around here. And this is again with the thicker nib. If you want to, when you get to some of these finer areas, you can switch to the fine tip. Okay, so this is as easy as it can be. And I like it because it really works along with the modern style of this flower, which means that I have a little bit more freedom. Now, if you wanted to do inking and blending and coloring in, you can definitely do that too, but this is kind of a nice free-form way of doing it. I also find it a bit relaxing too. So sometimes it's nice just to have a technique you know that is easy and relaxing to do. Okay, so I think again you can see how this is popping out. I'm going to keep using this wide nib when I'm coming through here. Get some nice thick layers on here. And then when I'm getting into some smaller areas and I want a little bit more control, and I don't want to cover up too much of the area, then I can come in with the fine tip. And it doesn't matter if some lines are covered over entirely, that's totally fine too. Okay, and then just working in some of these smaller areas here. Just follow the lines. Okay. There we go. And I think we're getting most of them here. Oops. There we go. So then here's my flower, which is standing out really nicely. And I've got some wobbly lines. I noticed one right there. You can also go back if you want to and just go over and kind of straighten out some of those lines if you want. Fill in some areas too. And then for the leaves, I'm using the Forest Glades. And again, either tip is going to work. For the outside edges, I'm going with the fine tip. And again, it's kind of a free form, really casual look. Just tracing along the artist's lines. And scribbling along here. And then for the center area here, that's where I'm going to switch into the thicker nib. Okay. And you can see the difference between the one that's colored, of course, and then the one that is still just black and white. Let's see, I'll keep this going with the fine tip or with the big tip, and then come around and do a little bit more with the fine tip. It's a nice way to emphasize the modern style of this stamp set, which I think is just one that's going to appeal to lots of different people on your card making list. You can't go wrong with a big flower. Okay, and so then there we go, and my flower is all colored in. And again, keep in mind you can use any of your marker colors with this. So if you wanted to swap it to a red flower, that would be cool. Pink, purple, whatever your favorite pen colors are. Now for the rest of the card, I've added in that stamped sentiment, hoping we can get together soon, which is the card theme of my past 6 months, I think, probably for a lot of you guys as well. If there are people that you have not been able to see that you would like to. This is a great way just to send them a little note and tell them that you are thinking of them. Okay, and I've just mounted this up onto some black cardstock and then put it onto the front of the card. You could, of course, add some sequins or some ribbons, lots of different embellishments on there if you wanted to. So this is our first card, quick and easy. Let's jump over to another design, same type of style, meaning that we're going to be working with that big flower and some leaves. But in this case, we're going to do some heat embossing and some ink blending. So let's take a look at this. Get out my Misty again. And for this process, I want to have, of course, my white cardstock. Now, for this one, I have stamped and then die cut the elements. So this is die cut and glued down. So are the leaves. They actually lift off a little bit. So when I do this, I'm going to stamp just the flower and one of the leaves so that you can see the process. And the flower that I'm using is this one right here. So different than the one we used before. And I'll pop that one down. And then I'll demonstrate, I'll grab this leaf here. For my card, I used both of the leaves, but let's just do one for this case. Now, knowing that I'm going to stamp and die cut them, I'm going to make sure that I leave some space in here so that I can die cut, get the cutting dies around there. Okay, so I'll pop this down. Now I'm going to be heat setting, so I want to have a couple of things on hand. First of all, the embossing ink that I accidentally used just a minute ago. So I've got my clear embossing ink. I've also got my embossing powder. This is the rose gold. This is one of my absolute favorites. I've got this on hand. And I also have a piece of just plain scrap paper, and this is what I'm going to use to catch my embossing powder, my excess embossing powder. Get the lid open a little bit. Okay, so I have my flower and my leaf on here, and I'll just ink these up with my embossing ink. Now do keep in mind that that pigment ink also, the obsidian, that also works as an embossing ink as well, so because it's a pigment ink. Okay, so press this down here. Make sure that all areas come in contact, lift that up, and then you do want to work, you know, fairly quickly with this in order to get the embossing powder on here before the embossing ink will dry. Okay, so we'll pop this in. Here's my scrap paper, so if you want to do any German vocabulary, this is what we do at my house. Okay, so I'm going to tap this on here and put it, just shake off any excess, and you can see that I've got all of those areas pretty much covered. This one needs a little bit more. Now, one thing I will point out with embossing powders, very often you're going to get some areas that have little stray granules, and it can be a little tricky to get rid of those. So what I like to do is I grab a fine tip dry paintbrush and I just kind of shimmy off the excess. You know, just tap those off a little bit. It really helps if you don't handle your paper that you're stamping and embossing onto. If you try to minimize that, then the oils from your hands won't get onto the cardstock. That's what also means your embossing powder will stick to it. Now, some areas are just really, really tight. So in this case, I like to use a toothpick. And the toothpick is a harder surface, of course, and it really can come in here and get rid of any of those little stubborn granules of embossing powder. Very often you just don't see them until they are melted onto your paper. Okay, so those are my tricks. When you're doing embossing, be sure to have a fine tip dry paintbrush on hand, and for really tight areas, a toothpick does the trick. Okay, so let me get my homework here, and then I can just funnel this right back into the jar, and none of it will go to waste. Okay, so I'll set this over here. And also very important before you do any heat setting is to make sure the lid is on the jar firmly. Otherwise, when that heat tool comes out, it's really easy to have it blow everywhere. Okay, and then all you need to do is heat set this. I'm going to grab my heat tool, put this onto my craft sheet, and it'll take just a second to heat set. So bear with me while we do this. Okay, let's see, there we go. And now I've got my flower on here and my leaf. I just saw a comment that she loves heat embossing. Me too. I think this is just such an easy way to get a beautiful look. And I will say, you could take the cutting tools, the die cutting tools, pop these down, run them through your die cutting machine, and you could have a really beautiful card focal just as this is. But I also wanted to show you how you can use this as a resist. So for this, I'm going to use my little blending tools. And I've got two of these, and these are tools that I'm definitely going to pick up a few more of, because the two that I have, I'm using for the, as you can tell, red and green color families, which sets me up nicely for Christmas, but at some point, I'm going to want one of these for blue. Now, I know I can wash them and switch colors, but I kind of like to have some that are already set with the colors that I use really frequently. So for the flower, I'm going to be working with 3 kind of red pinks. I'm going to be working with the coral berry, I've got the vineyard, and I've got heartbeat. And then for the leaves, I've got bamboo and forest glades. That's what I'm going to be using. Now, I'm going to do the coloring before I would do the die cutting on here, but as you can see, I've got 2 that are still kind of close together. So I'm just going to put my piece of scrap paper down on here, and then I'm going to do my blending over here. So let's start with the flower and my my red blending tool here, and I'll start with the lightest of the colors, which is the coral berry. And I'm just going to gently blend this all over the flower. Now, because I'm going to die cut it, I don't have to worry about going outside the outer lines. And because this is heat set, the raised embossed areas are going to act as a resist. So I've got this so far, which is kind of a pretty look. But let's keep going. Now I'll go with the next color, which is the heartbeat, and add a little bit more on here. And this is more of a red, where the coral berry really is a pinkish tone. This is definitely a red. And then let's do a little bit of the vineyard berry. Now that's quite a dark color, you can see on here. And start with a light touch and then just kind of blend that out around the edges. Okay, as much or as little as you want. And then you still have that beautiful gold coming through there, but it's acting as a resist on all of your other areas. Then you can just pop your little blender right back in there. And then I like to use a cloth just to buff away any of the ink that's kind of sitting on top of your embossed area there. So now I've got my flower, which is ready to go. Now I'm going to do my leaf here and get my other blender, my green, designated green blender. And we'll start with the bamboo. As I mentioned, you can wash these. I just wash them in the sink with a little bit of gentle detergent and then let them dry. And they don't take very long to dry either. So there's the bamboo. Now come back with some forest glades and add a little bit more in here. Kind of scrub that along in the center. Okay, so now I have my flower and I've got one of my leaves. Now if you wanted to do any more enhancing on here, you definitely could. You could use, if you wanted to, you could use the artist marker to, you know, kind of emphasize some of the various lines on here. I'm going to use my water brush for this one and a little bit of the forest glaze. So working onto my craft sheet here, I'm just going to put down a bit of color and then a little mist of water right next to it. And then let's pick up some of this color, and then we can just kind of add a little bit more shading on here. Now you don't have to do this, but sometimes it's nice just to get a little bit more color on here. And because all of the Altenew colors are so compatible, you don't have to worry about anything sort of clashing. They'll all blend really beautifully. Okay, fill this in just a little bit more. And then you've got some added emphasis on the leaf, but still keeping that beautiful shine. So that's how easy it is to get instant color on your stamped flowers and leaves. Just going to mop this up quite quickly and then bring back in my original card and show you. For the background, I've just added a little bit more inking around the outside edge and a little bit of spattering. I've got some of those sequins, and the sequins are the satin gold, these little guys. I love the jar. The jar keeps everything organized. I can always find them. Although my 9-year-old is like ready for me to be done with the sequins so she can have these little bottles. She likes them a lot. I think they're awfully cute too. But they do add a nice little touch. And they do come also in combination of sizes. So you get the little baby ones and medium sized ones and normal size sequins. So again, the flower and the leaves are just popped up, glued on here. You could pop them up with foam tape if you wanted to. And then I've got the Hello Sweetie stamp on here. So really super simple to do and a great way to put your inks to work as well. Okay, so those are our two cards featuring the Sweet Nothings. Really different, I think, which I really like to see how versatile different stamp sets can be. That's always exciting for me because we like to get a lot of mileage out of our stamps, don't we? So it's nice to see things that can be used in lots of different looks and ways. Okay, I'm going to put away my Sweet Nothings and we can get into the other stamp set that I wanted to show you today, which is buried over here, the Botanicals. So again, this is a layering stamp set. If you want it to be, it can also be a non-layering stamp set. You can do lots of different things with this. And I'm going to be stamping with the shadow Botanicals as well as doing some overlapping with the dots. So let's take a look at this card project here. So I'll show you first of all what they're supposed to look like when you layer them. So here's a quick one I did. I was just playing around with different colors. And basically what you'll do is you'll stamp the shadow, the silhouette design in one color and then stamp directly on top of it with another color and those dots so that you get this really beautiful dotty effect. I love these, and I will say that there are also dies that go along with this. So this is a really cool way, I think, to get kind of a modern effect. You can also, of course, not stamp the dots directly on top of the silhouette. You can offset things, which is what I've done here. So let's take a look at how to do this. Super duper easy. Again, I'm going to pop in a piece of cardstock here. I'm going to take a quick drink of my tea. And I'm going to be doing my stamping so that it's coming from the top of the card project rather than the bottom. And I'll show you one that I made. This is one that I did. This is the original one that I thought I would do. And I stamped it so that the botanicals are kind of coming up from the ground. And I put it aside and I was like, I don't like it. There's something off about it. I'm not going to use this. So I put it in the pile, one of the piles here. And I came back the next day and it surfaced again in the pile. And I thought, oh, actually, I do kind of like that. So you can go either way. By then it was too late. I'd already done this card project, but I do want to show you the variety of those. I'm probably not the only one who makes something and then thinks it's awful and then 2 days later looks at it and goes, oh, why didn't I like that? What was the mistake that I thought I made on there? Okay, so I'm going to start with this silhouette design here, first of all. And I'm going to work in with some different colors, some more unusual colors. And I'll tell you that I was inspired in the packaging by this card. And I love these colors on here. And I don't happen to have any of them, but I do have some that can be substituted. So you may or may not have the colors that are listed down here. You may have to go and check in your stash and find some things that will work. So I chose the almond butter and I also used pink pearl. So I wanted to go with kind of a brown and pink combination. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pop this down here, right in the center, coming from the top. Okay, so this is going to be my almond butter. Let's move these guys up here. Okay, so ink this up. I love this stamp. All of the stamps on that set are really cool, but I almost would get this stamp set just for this one stamp. Wait till you see how nicely it can be used. Super easy, just beautiful. And there we are with the almond butter. Now I'm going to do this again. I noticed I've got a little blip over on this side. So I'm just going to re-ink it, keep everything in place. Get that off of there, get everything, keep everything in place. And then you can just stamp and re-stamp things, okay? I'm working onto a smooth white cardstock for this. You could also get some interesting effects, I think, if you were working onto, for example, watercolor cardstock would be fun. Okay, so that's on here. Now what I'm going to do is stamp this again, but instead I'm going to be working with the pink pearl. So I just need to shift things around a little bit and kind of angle, because I don't want it to be, you know, 3 in the same sort of direction. So take advantage of the fact that you can get some different orientations on here. I can see I've got some leftover brown ink on there, but we're going to let that go for now. Okay, so this is with the pink pearl. And we'll ink it up again. And pop that back down. So then you can see I'm starting to get some cool effects. Now, it's time for a clean one. And then I'm going to balance it out by putting another bit of pink pearl, stamping on the other side. And again, let's see how we'll do it with our stamping. I don't need to have things overlapping. I want to keep a little bit of space, but I also want to make sure that I've got some areas covered on here. So I'll just tuck this around here. And once again, get my pink pearl. Ink that up. And I've got a little touch of it here, which is just what I wanted. And pop that down. Okay, so now I've got my larger piece on here, and then I've got my pink pearl kind of accenting off to the side here. Okay, now what I can do is leave this as it is if I want to, but I want to add in the dots, the dot part of the dot botanicals. So you've got one piece that matches perfectly. So this dotted element is going to be the exact match. So I could just position this, a little stray sequin on there. I could just position this on here and over stamp and it would be a really cool effect. But I'm going to add this over here instead. So let's do this. And again, I'm going to be using my black. You could use a dark brown for this. That would be cool as well. So pop that here. And then you're starting to see some pattern come up on here. I love this because I think it's really fresh and modern, but there's still a lot going on. Okay, so I'll just mop this up quickly, slide these little magnets over. This is where a stamp positioner really comes in handy. Okay, and then let's see, I'll just drop this guy here. And here we go. Back with our obsidian black or permanent black or jet black will do the trick too. Just a nice crisp black will be perfect. Okay. And now you can see, as I'm taking it away from the busyness of my background on here, just how nicely that can overlap. And then you can stamp your sentiment down at the bottom. You could stamp it directly on there or stamp and do some additional layering, maybe with a label die cut. Ziamara says, perfect for fall. Yeah, I agree. And I think maybe that's what the attraction to the colors was for me, because I'm definitely ready here for autumn. Autumn is one of my favorite seasons, actually. So I'm ready for the leaves to fall, and this really does work nicely for autumn themed cards. Now, if you had a birthday, you could pop in a birthday message on here. It looks like good stamp for Christmas bows, says Christine. Hi, Christine. I'm so glad that you're here with us tonight. I was thinking about you with your upcoming move, so I hope that's all going well. And you are right. If you were to do this in reds and golds, I think that would be absolutely beautiful for Christmas time as well. So a lot of different possibilities here. So again, with my original card, I've just added that stamp sentiment here. And it said, this is one that is also on the Dot Botanicals. It says, strive to find the beauty in every situation. Which is maybe I should frame that and put it on my wall. I think we're all trying to find the beauty in every situation these days. I've also added some of the sequins down here. I just really wanted to keep things quite clean and simple. You could wrap some gold embroidery thread around the side of the card too. That would be really pretty as well. Don't forget, you can turn things around and also have your botanicals coming up from the bottom of your card too. So again, you could do a lot of different possibilities. And as Christine mentioned, this would be gorgeous. Now that I'm thinking about that, thank you, Christine. It would be beautiful in some Christmas colors for holiday cards. Okay, so I've got one more card that I want to share with you. And this one is, I was really just kind of messing around, and I thought, let's see if this will look like anything. And I was really happy with the results, so I thought I would share it with you tonight. So this is taking that big Thanks mega die and die cutting it from a kind of an abstract stamped background, and then just popping that up onto foam tape so that you've got a little bit of dimension. So let's take a look at how to do this. I'll set this aside, grab my Misty again. And I don't need to worry too much for this on, specific placement or anything. So I'm going to do a little bit more abstract work here. Just need to clean my hands because I realize that I've got ink kind of everywhere, which is maybe just one of the hazards of the job. Okay, so once again, using my Dot Botanicals, and let's pop down this magnet for now. The colors that I want to be working in are pink pearl again, so I'm going to have the pink pearl out. I also used coral berry. So I've got the coral berry here, and bamboo was another one that I'm working with, and forest glades. Okay, so I've got my 4 ink colors ready to go. And I'm going to, again, use this really simple botanical image. And I'm going to have this just kind of going off the side here. Now, the other thing I want to have on hand is a water mister, because I want these colors. Ooh, I knew that was going to happen. I want these colors to have a little bit more of a watercolor effect. So I want a nice soft look. There we go. I finally got that. So I've got my water mister on hand. And with this, I'm going to start with the pink pearl, which is the lighter of my 2 pink colors. And just gently mist this. One quick spritz with My water mister will do the trick. This will probably still have some brown on it, who knows. So I've got a nice kind of watercolory look there. Okay, so while this is still a little bit wet, I'm just going to slide on a little bit of the coral berry. Again, mist, and pop that down. That's just to give me some variation on that color. Look at how pretty that is, though. Ooh, I like that. Okay, clean this off, and then I'm going to do the same process, but this time I'm using this big element here. So my other large botanical, and this one I'm going to do in greens. So let's see, I'll move this aside and pop this here. And this one I'll do the exact same process, but first inking with the bamboo. And I'm using the little cubes. Some of you may have the larger oval ink pads. I think you guys have all seen me use these little cubes quite a lot. Okay, so I've got the bamboo on there. Give a quick mist with some water, and I'm not flooding it. I'm just getting enough on there so that the ink will have kind of a watercolor look. Keep everything as it is, and then come back with some forest glades, just right down the center of the stamp. Again, give a couple of mists, and this is going to give me some variation in that. Okay, and then clean that off, and now I can also add in my dot stamps. And this time I'm going to use, let's see if I can turn it around, I'm going to use this large dot here, which is the one that you would layer on top of the one I just stamped. If you were doing it, you know, the way you're supposed to, you just pop it down on here and you'd have that really cool effect. But in this case, we're just going to have this going across here. I'm going to grab the other dot pattern and have that kind of going here. Again, keeping it really pretty random because it's meant to be completely abstract. You could really do some cool stuff with this, I think. Okay, so I've got my dots on here. Things are starting to look interesting. Let's see, I'm going to move this one over here. Pop that down. And then, let's see if I can do something with this guy. Oop, no, I don't think I have enough room. We'll get him on the next go round. Okay. And then ink this up again. And pop this down. Okay, so here we can see that I've just been building up a lot of color and pattern, and I'm going to call this good. Now I could do another bit of dot stamping over here on the side, but I think you've kind of got the point of this at this stage. So let me clean this off quickly. Toss my stamps to one side. I'm ending up with a nice big pile over on the side of me. Okay, and now what I can do is my die cutting. So remember my great big thanks die. What I'm going to do is pop this down on here, and then I'm going to run it through my die cutting machine. Now normally when you do die cutting, you're generally going for the shape of the word or the whatever shape that you're working with. In this case, I want to keep the word as well as the background. So what I'm going to do is turn to the side. My die cutting machine is just to the side of me. So I'm going to leave this card here and then just secure this down gently and run it through my die cutting machine, and I will show you the results in just a tick. So bear with me. My die cutting machine makes my whole table shake, so I try not to do it on air. Okay, here we go. So now I've got my word thanks. I'll move this aside. And when I pop this off, I've also got my positive and negative version here. Okay, so what I can do is simply take a contrasting piece of cardstock. And in this case, I used gray. You could use black, you could use, whatever color you have. Pop that on top just so that you've got something behind it. Now, when you glue this down, be sure, of course, you will put your adhesive around the outside edge here. Also, be sure you put it on these little innies. So these little delicate pieces. And then pop this down. That way you won't have these little pointy pieces kind of popping up or threatening to pop up. So glue this down. Then you're going to take your word and use foam tape. And I cut down really small pieces of foam tape to pop on the back. And then when you adhere this on here, you'll have kind of a great shadow effect. So I'm just setting it on there. I'm going to show you on the original, which I've got everything glued down on, so that you can see. This part is up on foam tape, and it's offset just a little bit to give you that kind of shadow effect on there. And again, you could use a black behind here. You could use a really bright pink or green, whatever color you wanted to emphasize from your background. So pretty quick and easy to do. This also will work really nicely with any of your large word stamps. So I have another one that says friend, which I think would be beautiful on this for this technique as well. Okay, so that is going to wrap it up for us this evening. I'm going to tilt up the camera. I'm going to try and quickly pick up some of these stamps here and organize them a little bit. And we'll go over again. Hello again. We'll go over again the projects, and I will show you the stamps as well. And then we will be done for the evening. And I hope that this has been a fun and inspiring session for you. I've had a great time. Really love these stamp sets that we're working with today. Okay, so I'll share them with you one more time. Here is the Sweet Nothings stamp set. 2 great big, cool, beautiful flowers, nice big leaves, and loads of sentiments. You are oh so sweet. Wishing you the sweetest day. Thank you for being you. I think we can think of lots of great card projects to do with those. Really easy to do. And of course, the matching die set as well. In addition to that, we've also got our dot botanicals, so our layering stamps, some of which are on my desk, some of which I managed to put back on the liner. So you've got those 2 big, beautiful botanicals, and then you've got the dot versions so that you can do some layering on here. And then the last one that I wanted to point out is that Mega Thanks die that I used for the very last project, and which I used for a lot of my projects. Really like that die. Okay, we'll whiz through the cards one more time just to refresh you. So you can take your artist markers, put them to use not only for coloring in, also for tracing. It makes a really fun and easy way to put those to use, especially if you haven't gotten out your artist markers for a while. Sometimes I find that I've neglected them and that I want to get them out and play with them. I'm not really a colorist though, so I really like to just do some simple outlining and pen work, and that does the trick. You can also do your heat embossing techniques, use that blender tool and your dye inks. You can even add in a little bit of a watercolor effect on here as well. And let's see, our dot botanicals in so many versions. You can have them coming from the top as we've done here. You can have them coming from the bottom. You can also do them the way they are supposed to be done and have them layering one on top of the other. And these were all using the same kind of color combinations from the dye inks. And then the very last one, again, with our mega die and our totally abstract background, which I think is a lot of fun, and which you could really do in some fun and different colors. Okay, guys, so that is going to wrap it up for us this evening. You have another minute or two to share the video tonight. Sorry, I'm going to grab another quick sip of tea here. And when you do share, do let us know how you shared as well. Aurum is with us tonight, and she will be the one to choose the lucky winner of $15 to the Altenew store. So I know that you can have fun with that. In the meantime, we'll be wrapping things up. Thank you, Aurum. It was nice to be with you this evening. Aurum was the one who was posting in all the links and keeping us going tonight. A big thank you to all of you for joining us. Some new folks, it was great to see you. Hopefully you will join us again soon. And wonderful to see everyone else, our regulars. So Sue and Stacy and Cece and Chris. Good luck with your move, Chris. And I hope that we will see you again next time too. Okay, you guys, take good care. Have a lovely weekend, and I will catch you again next time. Okay, bye-bye.